What's up guys, Garrett here. In this video, we're going to be going over something called Quill. So over the past week or so, I've been working on this side project and I've been using Angular. And as part of this project, I needed a rich text editor that would work really well with Angular or any front end for that matter, that I could incorporate into my project. And through my search, I found a few, but the best one that I found was called Quill, or Quill JS. And it's not just some small editor that someone made and kind of threw on the internet. It's actually a really powerful editor that is used by a number of really large companies. For example, LinkedIn, Salesforce, Slack, Intuit, USA Today, Vox Media, just to name a few. There's plenty more of them. Also, what's cool about Quill is that it doesn't just work with Angular. It works as a standalone JavaScript rich text editor, and it also works with React and I believe Vue.js as well. So in this video, what exactly am I going to be doing? Well, we're going to be implementing Quill into an Angular project. I think the conversion or like the translation is pretty simple and straightforward for React, although I use Angular, not React, so I can't really speak to that. So essentially what I have here is a pretty blank Angular project. And I just loaded in Bootstrap and set up the homepage to look a little bit more structured. So we'll have the editor on the left, and then we'll have what the output would be on the right. So after setting up the actual editor, what I'm also going to show you guys how to do is limit the amount of characters that the user can type. That's a really popular thing. And unfortunately, the Quill editor doesn't actually support the min length attribute that a standard HTML text area would or a input would. A number of other editors do support this. However, the way that Quill is made, it unfortunately doesn't. So we have to kind of use a little workaround to be able to do this. But since it's such a common thing, and I struggled a lot with it over the past day or so to get that figured out, I thought I would show you guys how to do that. And then the other thing that I'm going to do that isn't editor specific, but it's something that's really important, is let's say you have a form that someone goes to, they fill out the form, they use the editor, and then you want to display what the editor creates somewhere on your website. The problem is that the editor actually uses HTML markup to create whatever it's creating. And so if you go to display exactly what the editor gives you content-wise, you'll end up displaying HTML markup, which obviously isn't really what we want. So what I'm going to do is also show you guys at the very end how to display that content as rendered HTML rather than just the HTML markup. So the first thing that we're going to have to do is go into our editor. I am going to be using VS Code. However, you don't have to. I'll quit the Angular project and we're going to npm install --save. We'll do Quill and then the version as of this recording is 1.3.6, although whatever version you have, I would imagine would be okay. And the other thing we're going to install is ngx-quill, which is the Angular package that we'll be using to basically use Quill. The next thing we're going to have to do is go into our app modules and we will import Quill. So we'll type in Quill. That doesn't work. Of course, that doesn't work. So we'll come up here and import this from, it'll be ngx-quill, and now this will work. We can come over here and we'll say Quill module. Now if we come down here, this will give us the option for the Quill module. The next thing that we want to do is go back to our app component under this editor section, and we're going to create a form. And this is going to look like this. We're actually going to use reactive forms. So we will create or add a form group, and this will just be called editor form. And also ng submit, we're going to bind to that event, or we're going to capture that event rather. And we'll set this to on submit. Now inside of here, what we're going to do is we will have, because we're using Bootstrap, we will just do this properly, although this isn't necessary. We'll do a form-group, and then inside of this form-group, we will have a label which will be for the editor, we'll just say, And this will, you know what, we have this already. So, whoops. What we'll do is we will set this. We will add an H3 inside of here and call this the editor. Okay, now that we've done that, now it's time to actually add the Quill editor. And we also have to go and set up our form group and also the form control, which is what we're eventually going to put on the editor, because I'm pretty sure if we go here, we'll just get a bunch of errors, I think. Actually, we also need to do ngserve. And if we come back here, we get some errors because it doesn't know what form group is. We don't actually have that property, so we have to go and add that, as well as we will also add a form control, which we can add to the editor while we're doing this. So let's now come here and let's add an implement ng. Actually, it's just on init. And now we have to add this ng on init method. And so inside here, what we're going to do is we're going to first add a form group. So this will be editor. What do I call it? Editor form or something like that. Here we go. Editor form will be of type, not new, just form group. So that gets added. Make sure if you're not using VS Code, VS Code is very nice because it imports things for you for the most part. But if you're not using VS Code, make sure that you import these things all at the top, because if you don't, it won't work. Okay, so now we can do new editor form. And then we will set this equal to new form group. This is an object, and that really annoys me, but it's okay. This will be just the editor. And this is actually going to be our only field, so we're not going to really be doing too much. But regardless, we will create this to be a new form control. I'm kind of just going to go by this really quickly because the point of this video is not to teach how to use reactive forms. It's to teach how to use the Quill editor. So we're just going to go through this. And actually, we don't really need anything else, and that should be fine. We shouldn't have to pass anything else in. So for right now, let's just go and see. That should not be underlined like that, but regardless, we have to. The reason this isn't working is because I forgot to do something, which is to come down here into our imports and import reactive forms, and we'll add a comma there as well. And now hopefully we don't have any errors. We don't. Awesome. This now works. We have to actually add this form control to the Quill editor. So we will type in the form control name, and we will add editor right there. And now we can really quickly try to get some output to come over here. So to do that, and also notice that this now doesn't have a red thing, we will now create this on submit handler. So we'll come down here and we will create on submit. And for now, let's just console log. We'll just console log this dot get editor and the value, just to see if that works. So if we, oh wait, we forgot to add a button. That's my fault. Let's add a button. This will be submit, and because we're using Bootstrap, we can also just make this look kind of nice. So we'll say btn primary, and then we'll say margin, not b, margin top of, I don't know, 5, let's say, just to make it a lot. So let's just say Garrett, and then we'll do that, and we get an error. That's really, really cool. On submit's not a function because we spelled it incorrectly. That would be a problem. And now if we do this again, we can type in my name, which is Garrett. And here you can see that we do in fact get the value. And what's interesting to note is that this is the value of what's in here. So we don't really realize that this doesn't just say Garrett. This actually says paragraph tags and then Garrett inside of it, right? So if we were to, let's say, do something else and we did this, Garrett, Jake, Austin, I don't know, Chuck, whatever, just some random names, and we did this, we would get an ordered list. with the paragraph and some breakpoints and stuff like that, because this isn't actually just text, it's HTML markup, and that was what I was trying to explain earlier. And so when we go to have this output over here, we don't just need to have it output, that's easy. We need to actually have it output and render the HTML, and that's what I'm going to show you guys. It's actually pretty easy to do as well, but it's really important to know how to do, and hopefully I can help you guys out and not be searching all over Google, because as fun as that is, it's also not that fun. So before we do that, let's finish up with our editor here. The next thing I want to do is I want to add some styles so that if you noticed, if we delete this, it kind of grows as we add more content. I don't really like that. I want it to be a set amount of space. I want it to be a set height so that, number one, the page isn't moving like this. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. But also, this doesn't look very good as it is. So let's go and take care of that. The way that we're going to do that is we're going to bind to the style property on the Quill Editor component. And this is what's really cool about using the Angular package, is that it opens up all of this, some of the stuff, or all of the stuff, I don't know how much, but it opens up things in the API that we can use, and it creates them, or it transforms them into like properties that we can bind to that make it really, really easy to use with Angular. So we'll just put in editor style, and then we'll save that. And then over here, we will create an editor style variable. And this is going to be really simple. We're just going to add the height, and this will be, I don't know, 300 pixels. Let's take a look. We also don't need that. Great. So now this is 300 pixels, and if we go all the way down to the bottom, it doesn't get any bigger. It just scrolls, which is what we want. We don't want it to be expanding the page along with it. So we have that. Also, as a side note, this is annoying me. This should only be like 3 or something like that. That's a lot better. Okay. Now that we've done that, one more thing that I do want to point out in regards to the style, because it kind of annoyed me that this was the case. It's not a bad thing that this is this way, but just something to be aware of, is that if we were to change this to BG Lite, if you're using Bootstrap, for example, that didn't really work. That's because it should be a dash and not an underscore. Then this takes on the color of whatever's behind it. In other words, it's transparent. So in that case, you would have to go in here and just add a background color, that's not capitalized, background color of, also that shouldn't be capitalized, of white or whatever you want. And so then that'll fix that issue. Okay? Just something to be aware of, because when I first started, I was a little lost as to why that was doing that. But is what it is. No big deal. Okay, so the next thing that we have to do is we need to edit the toolbar, right? And you can actually, there's a lot of stuff you can do. You can do like syntax highlighting with code, all kinds of other stuff. But right now, this toolbar, it's a little complicated. There's a lot going on here, and we really don't need that much. I mean, we're not recreating Microsoft Word here, and we're not creating, Google Docs or anything like that. So we can get rid of some of this stuff, and in whatever project you're working on, chances are you're not really going to need that much going on. You might just need some basic editing functionality. If you do need a lot, it's obviously there for you, but you probably won't. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to bind to the modules property, and we're not going to call ours modules. We're just going to call it config. I like that term better, but whatever. And here we are going to create the config, and this will be an object. And inside here, what we're going to do is, there's a lot of other stuff that you can put here, but I'm only going to show you guys the toolbar. If you want to see what other stuff there is, I would recommend you go to the documentation, and you can see all of the other stuff you can put inside of the config. For example, the syntax highlighting thing that I mentioned earlier, you do have to install like a dependency for it, but it's no big deal. So what we can do here is the toolbar property is going to be an array of arrays, basically. So each array within this array is going to be a section within our toolbar. Let me show you what I mean. So if we have this just by itself, this should be nothing, right? But we can add, let's say, bold. We'll add italic, and we will add underline. That looks pretty good. Let's see what that does, right? So we get this bit here. And this will work. So if we do this, right, we have that. If we come down here, we can, that didn't do anything. We can make this italic, we can make it underline, we can turn off bold, right? And if we hit submit, you can see it does. It creates the strong tags, it creates the I tags, the underline tag, or the emphasis tags rather, and the underline tags, right? So it does work, right? So let's add a couple more things. Actually, let's just add one more section. And this one, which I thought was really, really cool, was the code block. So actually part of the reason that I ended up using Quill as opposed to something else like CK Editor, for example, is that to get a code block in there was super, super easy. So let's take a look at this. Let's, we'll say some code, and we will make that bold, and then below it we'll take off the bold, and we can make this var names equals an array of names. We'll say Garrett, we'll say Jake, and we'll say Austin, something like that, I don't know. So we have that, and we can add a code block here, and you can hit enter a couple times and you can get out of it, and then you have some more text there. And if we hit submit, you can see that it kind of creates this code block for us, right? So we have that, right? So that's pretty cool. That works really, really well. And what I meant by those sections is you can see that there's a little bit more space here between these two things, and so we get more sections there. So before I show you guys how to get that output thing working, one thing I did want to show you is a little bit of an extra bit here, is how to actually have like a limit in characters. I mean, you don't want to allow people, first off, you don't want to allow people to put in code that's going to be executed on your server. You don't want to allow people to type an insane amount. Like, you don't want someone putting an entire book's worth of text here, right? You want to be able to limit them. And unfortunately, the Quill Editor doesn't actually support the min length attribute that a normal text area in HTML would support, for example. And other editors actually support that, but this for some reason doesn't. I think it's the way that they kind of do their data model on the back end, or behind the scenes, if you will. But nevertheless, we can take care of this by coming down here, and we will actually go to the front end really, really quick, and we're gonna listen for another event. This is going to be the on content change. It's actually going to be past tense as well, so we'll add another D there. And then this is going to be, we'll just call this limit, or we'll call it max length. Okay, so we're going to have that. And we're also going to pass in the event, right? We actually need to get something. We can't just have that execute, so we're going to pass in the event. So now we'll do here, and we'll take an E for event, and this is now working. So every time something happens here, let's just console log the event so that we can see what this looks like. And as you can see on the left there, we get every time that you type something, another event gets fired, or this fires and shows you the event. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if e.editor.getLength is greater, then you could have like whatever max length like variable you want, but just to be able to show you that this works, I'm going to put in 10 right there. And then we will have e.editor. And then we'll use delete text. So this is using the API that the Quill JS editor actually exposes to us to actually take care of this. So e.editor.getLength, that should also be a executed method, not just that, but that basically is a method that the Quill JS editor has available for us, and there are a bunch of them. You can go and look at the documentation, and so this is how we're able to do this. This is how we're able to get this workaround going here instead of using a natively included or supported property that we can bind to. So, it gets the job done, and it actually does do it pretty well. So we'll put in 10 there, and we'll say e.editor. Nope. Yeah, that was right actually. dot get length, and we'll take a look at that. So let's see what we can do here. So as you can see, I'm still typing. I'm trying to type more here, and it doesn't let us, right? So we are able to do that, right? We are able to limit the amount of characters they can type. One thing to keep in mind, however, is let's say that here I have a paragraph, or a span rather, and I have inside of here, I have the editor form.get, and then we will get this this editor, and then out of that we'll say value, and then dot length. Okay, so that didn't work. Oh, that's because, yeah, that's why. Okay, so basically what's going on here, we'll say, actually we should do ng if, I know this is going to be kind of long, but it's going to work, so that's really all that matters for this video. If this is not null. Okay, so we'll come over here and say dot, no, not dot max length, just length. Did you guys see what happened there? Now it works. It's going up by 1. But right here, it's 8. It's not 1. There's only an S there. And that's because if we click this, it includes not just the content of what we're typing here. It includes the entire paragraph tag. So one thing to remember here is if, let's say you have, 10 minus, because that would be, this is how many characters you have left. So you want to show the user how many characters they have left, right? So if you were to type in just one letter, all of a sudden that takes up 8 characters. It doesn't become 9, it becomes 2. So one thing to keep in mind here is that although this does work, it might be a little bit weird for your user to be using this, because it is giving them the right answer. It's just not what you expect to be. So I don't know, maybe if you want to have just like a little heads up or something like that. I mean, it's up to you and whatever you want to do in your project, but that is also another kind of, not a gotcha, but just like a heads up to be aware of. Okay, let's work on the last part of this video, which is showing the output and making it actually render as HTML text, or as render the HTML, not show. Does that make sense, right? Not show the HTML markup. The way that we're going to do this is we're going to bind to the inner HTML here, and we will have this be editor content. I can't remember if I used editor content somewhere else, but whatever. And this will be on submit. We will have up here, we'll create a new thing here called editor content, and this will be a string. Now in here, we will set this dot editor content to equal this, right? And we can leave the console log there for now. Doesn't work. Why doesn't that work? Oh, that's because I don't actually think that we need this. Okay, so let's type in Garrett just to see if this works here. Does work, right? Pretty cool. Okay, so we have that. Let's also change this here to be 1,000, just so that we don't have any issues with this. And also we have to change this bit here to 1,000 so that it doesn't look really weird, right? Okay, so if now we have Garrett, and then down here we'll have a list, which, oh, I forgot we took away the list option, but let's do the code thing that we had before. So we'll have some code here, and then we will have var cities will equal an array of, let's say, Philly, New York, and LA. That's, I didn't put the quotes in, right? And then one last one we'll put in, I don't know, Miami or something like that. And more code or some explanation here. The story goes here. Okay, cool. Now, I actually haven't done this yet, so let's see what the code block looks like. We'll add that, and if we hit submit, we get this. So that's pretty cool. It actually does, I mean, it doesn't style it like with a background like that. Maybe you could edit that or something in the back, yourself, but this does, and also that is kind of weird that it doesn't go away. So maybe if we do, I don't know, maybe if we have some kind of a for var x equals 0 something something something, and then we have and then we have, oh, that actually worked really well. We have something else here, and then we have this. Now let's see what happens. Okay, cool. So we get, a little bit more going on here, and this does format it pretty well. So as you can see, this works, and I thought it'd be really interesting just to show you guys that, and I wanted to show you guys how to output it properly, because if you can see here, this is what it actually creates right there, but you don't actually want to show that to the user or anything like that on the front end. So I hope you guys really enjoyed watching this video. I had a really great time learning how to use Quill JS and put it together with Angular, and just in general, and I'm having a good time working on my side project. And as I come up with new things and stuff that I find in the side project that I think might be worthy of showing some people, I will continue to make videos like this in general and whatever. So again, thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, hit that bell button so you get some notifications whenever I post videos, and subscribe or leave some comments. I don't know, whatever. Also, if you have any ideas for something you want to see that maybe you think I should check out, also leave a comment down below. All right, thanks guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Peace.